the President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow with me as I pray for this solemn occasion. Almighty God, with humble hearts we gather before you today, grateful for the privilege of honoring these 7 courageous and selfless defenders of freedom, whose acts of bravery were demonstrated during combat operations in Korea and Vietnam. Heavenly Father, we thank you for their valor and courage in the face of extreme circumstances, for their families and friends who stand with them today in love and in remembrance of 6 of them who are no longer with us, and for Specialist Kenneth J. David, who, by your grace, joins us as our nation bestows upon him and his fellow comrades the Medal of Honor. Grant us, O God, the strength to follow the noble examples of these 7 soldiers who, seeking not their own renown, but the well-being of others, pressed forward in the fight, steadfast, strong, and unwavering. Heavenly Father, bless all future generations of Americans who hear of the great deeds and sacrifices of these heroes as our nation demonstrates a commitment to never forget the exploits of those who defend freedom. And Lord, bless our beloved nation. Empower us to preserve the freedoms we cherish as Americans. And let the light of liberty continue to shine from sea to shining sea. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as a Commander-in-Chief, this is the most solemn occasion that I participated in my 4 years every time we do this event. Secretary Austin, Secretary Wormuth, Chairman Brown, General, it's good to see you. Representative Case, Castro, Ryan, and Tucano. Most importantly, veterans, service members, and previous Medal of Honor recipients. Today is the final time as Commander-in-Chief, and I'm deeply privileged to honor 7 American heroes. And that's not hyperbole. These are genuine to their core heroes. Heroes of different ranks, different positions, and even different generations. But heroes who all went above and beyond the call of duty. Heroes who all deserve our nation's highest and oldest military recognition, the Medal of Honor. First, Private Bruno Orig. Proud son of Hawaii. Bruno joined the Army when he was just 19 years old. Less than 1 year later, he was completing a mission in Korea. Bruno saw his fellow soldiers were wounded and stranded under enemy fire. Without hesitation, he ran out to rescue them, giving his own life to save the lives of his brothers in arms. That's valor. That's the definition of valor. Private First Class. You know, I think it's incredible when I think of the men and women who've gotten this award. But Private First Class Wataru Nakamura, after an attack on Pearl Harbor, he was forced to live in an internment camp, like so many other Japanese Americans, like my good friend Danny Inoue, who was a hero himself, put in an internment camp. But still, he signed up to serve our nation during World War II and the Korean War. During his last mission in May of 1951, single-handedly, he defended his unit from enemy attack, fighting until he was killed by a grenade. Corporal Fred McGee, a Midwesterner, a steel worker, and a gunner, one of the first integrated Army units of the Korean War. Fred embodied the very best of our country. In June 1952, his unit was attacked. They took casualties. They were ordered to fall back. But Fred refused to leave until he helped every wounded soldier evacuate. Private First Class Charlie Johnson, growing up, in the words of Charlie's high school classmate, he was a heck of a football player. Well, back in 1952, Charlie signed up to serve in Korea, trading his jersey for a uniform. During one battle, he gave his life to defend the bunker full of his wounded soldiers. His valor saved 10 men, including an old high school classmate. General Cavasso, a young first lieutenant in Korea. Richard led his men through a difficult and deadly mission in enemy territory. Eventually, he was ordered to retreat, but he stayed. He stayed, rescuing wounded soldiers one by one until every one of them was evacuated. Richard went on to serve for 3 decades in the Army, becoming the country's first Hispanic 4-star general. And Captain Hugh Nelson, Citadel graduate, helicopter pilot, and a proud young father. He was just 28 years old when he and his crew were shot down in Vietnam. Hugh freed his men who were trapped in the wreckage. Then as the enemy began to attack, he used his body as a shield to protect them. It cost him dearly. It cost him his life. Hugh's commanding officer called it the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, which it was. And finally, Private First Class Ken David, who is here with us today. Nearly 55 years ago in Vietnam, his company was ambushed by the enemy. Ken's lieutenant was killed instantly. Then Ken himself was hit in the back with shrapnel. But he couldn't and wouldn't give up. Instead, he shouted and fired his weapon, to attract attention to him, away from others, and away from the wounded man. Imagine that courage. Come get me. Come get me. Don't get those folks. That's selflessness. Ken, I want to say to you that I wish I could say to every man we're honoring today, you're a hero, a genuine hero, flat out, straight up American hero. And we owe you. The families owe you. Let me close with this. As I said earlier, these are my final days as Commander-in-Chief. It's been the greatest honor of my life to be entrusted with the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. They're the finest military in the history of the world. And every day their integrity, their patriotism, and their courage. And to learn these stories of Americans like Bruno and Arturo and Fred and Charlie and Richard and you, Ken. Americans who have not only fought for our nation, but who embodied the very best our nation has to offer. Let me also say this. Today we award these individuals a Medal of Honor. But we can't stop here. Together as a nation, it's up to us to give this medal meaning, to keep fighting for one another, for each other, to keep defending everything these heroes fought for and many of them died for. The ideals of America, the freedom we cherish, the democracy that has made our progress possible. And remember, we are the only nation in the world built on an idea. Every other nation is built based on geography, ethnicity, or religion. But we are our only nation based on an idea. The idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout their entire lives. We haven't always lived up to it. We've never, ever, ever walked away from it. Today we must say clearly, we never, ever, ever will. Now it's my great honor to ask Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Litsky, the Medal of Honor, to read the Medal of Honor citations. And thank you all for being here, and God bless you. May God also protect our troops who are still engaged. Thank you.
Loretta Orig, accepting on behalf of her brother, Private Bruno Orig. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded, in the name of Congress, the Medal of Honor to Private Bruno R. Orig, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Private Bruno R. Orig distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving with Company G, 23rd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division in the vicinity of Cheopyeong-ni, Korea, on February 15, 1951. While returning from a wire-laying mission, Private Orig observed a number of his comrades who had been wounded in a fierce enemy attack that was still in progress. With complete disregard for his own safety, Private Orig went to the aid of these men and remained in an exposed position in order to administer first aid to them. With the assistance of several comrades from the company command post, Private Orig began removing the wounded to a place of safety. While returning from one of these trips, Private Orig noticed that all except one man of a machine gun crew had been wounded. Without hesitation, he volunteered to man the weapon. Remaining in this position, Private Orig placed such effective fire on the enemy that a withdrawing friendly platoon was able to move back without a single casualty. Private Orig continued to inflict heavy casualties on the enemy until the company positions were overrun. Later that day, when the lost ground was recaptured, Private Orig was found dead beside his weapon, and the area in front of his gun was littered with enemy dead. Private Orig's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Gary Takashima, accepting on behalf of his uncle, Private First Class Wataru Nakamura. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded, in the name of Congress, the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Wataru Nakamura, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Private First Class Wataru Nakamura distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving with Company I, 38th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division in the vicinity of Cheopyeong-ni, Korea, on May 18, 1951. At about daybreak of that date, Private First Class Nakamura volunteered to check and repair a communications line between his platoon and the command post. As he made his way along the line in the early morning half-light, he was brought under fire by an enemy force that had surrounded friendly positions and were threatening to break the company defense lines. Immediately, without regard for his own safety and without waiting for help, Private First Class Nakamura rushed the enemy with fixed bayonet engaged. Single-handedly, he attacked and destroyed a hostile machine gun nest and drove the enemy from several of the bunkers they had captured. When his ammunition was depleted, he withdrew under intense enemy fire. Then he met an ammunition party ascending the hill. Quickly briefing the officer in charge, Private First Class Nakamura rearmed himself and, covered by the fire of the officer and two comrades, returned the attack. In a fierce charge, he killed 3 of the enemy in one bunker and killed and seriously wounded another in the last enemy-held bunker. Continuing to press the attack, he fell mortally wounded by an enemy grenade. Private First Class Nakamura's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Victoria Seacrest, accepting on behalf of her father, Corporal Fred McGee. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Corporal Fred B. McGee, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Corporal Fred B. McGee distinguished himself by gallantry in action near Tongwon-ni, Korea on June 16, 1952, in an assault on enemy fortified positions. As gunner on a light machine gun in a weapons squad, Corporal McGee delivered a heavy volume of supporting fire from an exposed position despite intense enemy machine gun and mortar fire directly on his location. Though forced to move his gun several times, he continued to support the assault and give covering fire to the assault elements of his platoon. When his squad leader was wounded, together with several other members of his squad, he assumed command and moved the squad even farther forward to a more exposed position in order to deliver neutralizing fire on an enemy machine gun sweeping the other assault platoon with deadly flanking fire. When his machine gunner was mortally wounded, he again took over the gun. On order, he directed his squad to withdraw and voluntarily remained behind to help evacuate the wounded and dead. Though wounded in the face, he heroically exposed himself by standing straight up in intense enemy machine gun and mortar fire while attempting to evacuate the body of the company runner. Forced to abandon the body, he aided a wounded man to be moved to the rear and safely through a huge volume of enemy mortar and artillery fire. The gallantry displayed by Corporal McGee reflects great credit upon himself and is in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. Dr. Juanita Mendez, accepting on behalf of her brother, Private First Class Charles Johnson. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Charles R. Johnson, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Private First Class Charles R. Johnson distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity beyond the call of duty while defending Outpost Harry against overwhelming odds and making the ultimate sacrifice to save the lives of his comrades in the Republic of Korea during the period of June 11, 1953 to June 12, 1953. Private First Class Johnson was serving as a Browning automatic rifleman with Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. Chinese forces attacked his unit during a massive nighttime assault. During the ensuing battle, overwhelming numbers of Chinese troops assaulted the trenches and bunkers defended by Private First Class Johnson and his squad. Private First Class Johnson, wounded from a direct artillery hit on his bunker and subsequently from a hand grenade thrown inside the bunker, at the personal disregard for his injuries, administered first aid to those more seriously injured. Understanding the seriousness of the situation and being under direct fire from the enemy, Private First Class Johnson personally dragged a wounded soldier to the safety of a secure bunker, stopping intermittently to aid injured soldiers and kill several enemy troops in hand-to-hand combat. Departing the safety of the second bunker, he conducted a search for weapons and ammunition, and then returned to rearm everyone. Recognizing their untenable situation and disregarding his personal safety, he exited the bunker, placing himself between the enemy and his injured comrades, informing them he would hold off the enemy as best as he could. His brave and selfless efforts were directly attributed to saving the lives of as many as 10 soldiers. Private First Class Johnson's extraordinary actions in close combat with the enemy, his unyielding courage and bravery, and profound concern for his fellow soldiers are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Laura Blevins, accepting on behalf of her father, General Richard Cavazos. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to First Lieutenant Richard E. Cavazos, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. First Lieutenant Richard E. Cavazos distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as the company commander, Company E, 2nd Battalion, 65th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, on June 14th to 15th, 1953, in the vicinity of Saghi-mak, Korea. On the night of June 14th, First Lieutenant Cavazos led his company in a raid on an entrenched enemy outpost with the mission of destroying the personnel and installation thereon. During the initial attack, First Lieutenant Cavazos led his men through intense enemy mortar and artillery fire. Upon entering the trenches, fierce close combat ensued, during which First Lieutenant Cavazos directed heavy fire on the enemy in their positions. When an extremely intense enemy mortar and artillery barrage hit his position, First Lieutenant Cavazos withdrew the company and regrouped his men. Twice more, he led his men through intense enemy fire and assaults on the enemy position, destroying vital enemy fortifications and personnel. During the entire assault, First Lieutenant Cavazos gave effective commands and words of encouragement to his men, and by his personal example and leadership, inspired them to heroic heights of achievement. When ordered to withdraw his company, First Lieutenant Cavazos complied, but remained alone on the enemy outpost to search for missing men. Although exposed to enemy fire, First Lieutenant Cavazos located 5 battle casualties and evacuated each, one by one, to a point on the reversed slope of a nearby hill where they could be safely recovered by friendly forces. Returning to the battlefield, he found a small group of men who had become separated from the main assaulting force and personally led them to safety. When informed that there were still men missing, First Lieutenant Cavazos again returned to the scene of the battle, where he located and led another small group of men to safety. First Lieutenant Cavazos then made 2 more unassisted trips to the battlefield, searching for missing soldiers. Not until he was personally satisfied that the battlefield was cleared on the morning of June 15th did he allow treatment of his own combat wounds sustained during the action. First Lieutenant Cavazos' conspicuous gallantry, extraordinary heroism, and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Deborah Nelson McKnight, accepting on behalf of her father, Captain Hugh Nelson. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Captain Hugh Revis Nelson, Jr., United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Captain Hugh R. Nelson, Jr. distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a member of the 114th Aviation Company, Air Mobile Light, on June 5, 1966, near Moc Qua, Republic of Vietnam. Captain Nelson was the acting aircraft commander of an armed Huey helicopter on a search and destroy reconnaissance mission when it was struck by a large volume of enemy fire that rendered the aircraft virtually uncontrollable. With great difficulty, Captain Nelson and the pilot were able to crash land the aircraft without lateral controls. At some point after the crash, Captain Nelson exited the aircraft and went to the aid of his wounded comrades. Proceeding to the other side of the aircraft, he found his dazed and wounded crew chief still trapped inside. After removing the specialist and placing him on the ground, Captain Nelson climbed into the severely damaged helicopter to assist the door gunner who was still trapped inside and unable to move. While Captain Nelson tried to free his comrade, the insurgents engaged the aircraft with a heavy volume of automatic rifle and small arms fire at a range of approximately 30 feet from the aircraft. Despite the heavy enemy fire, Captain Nelson continued his gallant efforts, freeing the trapped door gunner despite being hit by enemy fire. Upon removing the wounded door gunner from the aircraft, he forced the specialist to the ground and, without regard for his own life, used his own body as a shield to cover his comrade from the intense enemy fire. While shielding his comrade, Captain Nelson was hit several times by enemy fire, sacrificing his own life to save the life of his comrade. His selfless sacrifice allowed his wounded comrade to use a smoke grenade to signal supporting aircraft in the area that there were crash survivors. The supporting aircraft responded immediately, preventing the insurgents from advancing on the downed aircraft and successfully rescuing the 3 wounded crew members. Captain Nelson's conscious decision to sacrifice his own life for that of his comrades saved the lives of his 3 fellow crew members that fateful day. Captain Nelson's distinctive accomplishments are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Specialist, 4th Class Kenneth David. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Kenneth J. David, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Private First Class Kenneth J. David distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty on May 7, 1970, while serving as a radio telephone operator with Company D, 1st Battalion, 506th Infantry, 101st Airborne Division, near Fire Support Base Marine, Tua Ten Province, Republic of Vietnam. On this date, Private First Class David's company came under an intense enemy attack from a large hostile force. The enemy's ferocious initial assault mortally wounded the company's platoon leader and resulted in numerous other friendly casualties. Upon the initial assault and without hesitation, Private First Class David handed his radio to his platoon sergeant, and moved forward to the defensive perimeter, unleashing a barrage of automatic weapons fire on the enemy. From this location, Private First Class David bitterly resisted all enemy efforts to overrun his position. Realizing the impact of the enemy assault on the wounded who were being brought to the center of the perimeter, Private First Class David, without regard for his own life, moved to a position outside of the perimeter while continuing to engage the enemy. Each time the enemy attempted to concentrate its fire on the wounded inside the perimeter, Private First Class David would jump from his position and yell to draw the enemy fire away from his injured comrades and back to himself. Refusing to withdraw in the face of the concentrated enemy fire now directed toward him, he continued to engage the enemy. Although wounded by an exploding satchel charge and running perilously low on ammunition, he tossed hand grenades toward the attackers to effectively counter their fire. The unit's medic, realizing that Private First Class David had been injured, moved to his position to provide aid, but Private First Class David assured him that he was okay and continued to fight on. Private First Class David's courageous and selfless actions continued to draw the enemy fire away from the incoming medevac helicopters, allowing the wounded to be safely evacuated. After Allied reinforcements fought their way to his company's position, Private First Class David carried a wounded comrade to a sheltered position. He then returned to the contact area and continued to engage the enemy and provide covering fire for the wounded until the enemy broke contact and fled, at which point he too was medically evacuated. Private First Class David's conspicuous gallantry, extraordinary heroism, and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow with me for the benediction. Heavenly Father, as we depart this ceremony, may the courage of these 7 heroes be our example. May righteousness be our choice, and may hope be our guiding light as we move with purpose in our world. Bless and protect our armed forces as they preserve our precious freedoms and keep the light of liberty burning bright on the United States of America and our allies around the world. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Distinguished guests, please remain in your seats as the President departs.
You get to think about your personal relationships. The people you grew up with, you have different points of view on. The people you, in fact, know, you worked with, who have different perspectives in life. Much of it's because of their circumstance. And when you know it, you can almost always figure a way through it. We don't do that anymore. And I'm not saying this for the first time, but the single greatest loss we have is we don't know each other anymore. We don't know each other like we used to know each other. I'm serious, not a joke. And so I really urge you, presumption me to say this. If you're a good politician, you're good at interfacing with people. You can get people to trust you looking at you and knowing what you're saying to them is true. Your word is your bond. You break it once, man. In the center of the house, goodbye, Charlie. I'm not joking. It's fundamentally different. But if you say, I've got to do this because this is my constituency, this is important, I know it's not to your, you get it. The end result of all this is, in my career, I have been asked to do the eulogy of the most incredibly different people. Strom Thurmond, 100 years old, on his deathbed. I get a phone call from the hospital, from out of Walter Reed. And it's his wife, Nancy, saying, Joe, I'm here with the doctors at the nurses station. Strom asked me to ask you whether or not you'd do his eulogy. And I said, well, Nancy said, no, Joe, it's important to him. Would you do his eulogy? Well, you know, people change. I'm not making to rewrite Strom Thurmond. He was a segregationist. But when Strom Thurmond got elected to the United States Senate, the second time around, the New York Times had a big headline in I can't remember the year now. Strom Thurmond, Hope of the South. Because Strom Thurmond decided that separate but equal was not right. Not that blacks and whites should be together. But if you do separate but equal, you had to spend as much money on black schools as white schools. By the time Strom Thurmond left the United States Senate, he had, I'm not making a case for him, but he had more African Americans on his staff than any United States senator had. More. Strom Thurmond had an illegitimate child with a black woman. Never denied it, never stopped paying for his upbringing. There's a lot of strange people. A lot of different people. No, I mean, well, I bet I could look at you and I could find some strange things too. No, but I'm really serious. Think about it. Think about it. And so when you sit down with people, I mean, the idea that I got Jesse Helms to vote to fund the United Nations, I'm serious. Went to Jesse Helms's Jesse Helms' funeral. You know what Jesse Helms talked about? Before he died, he said, I made a big mistake, Joe. I should have never said what I said. And by the way, I didn't get on with him at all. But know what he said? He said, I should have never said what I said about, you know, all those folks just got out of trees not long ago like monkeys. He said, I was wrong about that. I want to take it all back. People can change. But you got to know them. You got to talk to them. Doesn't mean you'll do it. But things can change. And look, we're going through I know a lot of my colleagues are tired of hearing me saying this, but we're going through a period in American history which is one of those inflection points in history. The Cold War is over. The Cold War era is over. We're in an entirely new era. Everything's changed. Not because of any single woman or man, because the nature of things that have changed. Think of the transitions that are taking place in the world, unrelated to who the leadership is. Think of what's going on, whether it's global warming or whether it's the idea that whole alliances are breaking down and being reestablished. And it seems to me that our safety depends, and security depends in large part on who our partners are, who our allies are. They matter. So you're going to need a position that have to deal with. One of the things I'm proudest of is I've rebuilt NATO. I say I, but I did. For real. I mean, by the way, I spent over, no. I got to say that. It took me over, we calculated 120 hours with these world leaders, individually, speaking to them individually, why it was important. I remember getting a phone call 10 days before he died from Dr. Kissinger saying, Joe, I was half the time in a different position than Kissinger was because I was a senior senator at the time during the Vietnam War by that time. And he said, not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over the shoulder with dread at what's going on in Moscow. You guys came, he said you, but it's not me. You came along. We've improved NATO. We strengthened it. We put it back together again. We're in a position where we were able to convince. Did you ever think we'd be in a position, those of you who are students of history, where Japan would be spending 2% of its GDP on defense? We get 50 nations to support us, our efforts in Ukraine. Why? Because the world's gotten so damn small. So damn small. They all understand what happens in my neighborhood is going to affect every neighborhood. We're putting together alliances in the South Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, the Quad. Did anybody ever think we get India, Japan, Australia, United States in one organization? The point I'm making is everything's changing. I've known Putin for over 47 years, met with him many times. I remember when I met with him in the off period between the time that we were elected and before we were sworn in. Or just after we were sworn in. Actually, before we were sworn in. No, that's true. Just after we were sworn in early February. And I wanted to talk about reestablish arms control and dealing with nuclear weapons. And he started to talk about how Russia had changed and so on and so forth. And he talked about he has 8 time zones. I said, yeah, 8 time zones around the Arctic Circle. And guess what? The ice is melting. And what's coming out is not greenhouse gases. It's methane. You're never going to control it. It's not going to refreeze. What are you going to do about it? So my point is, so much is changing. And think about this. You know, if we don't lead the world, who leads? And that's not a criticism of any of our allies. But who has the capacity to try to hold the world together? Not a joke. We can do it without going to war. We can do it as we've been able to do, God willing, since we've come into office. We can do it without sending American forces into place. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, you know, let me close with what I call the Senate point of personal privilege. You know, my father used to say, it's a lucky person who wakes up with both feet in the ground and believes that what he or she does matters. Well, you're among the lucky few. What you do really is going to matter economically and politically. But one piece of unsolicited advice, and I was reluctant to say this to the press here, but I'm going to do it anyway, because they know the facts here. Going back to when I told you when I got elected, I didn't want to stay. Teddy Kennedy and Fritz Hollings and Tom Eagleton and a number of Republicans as well, there were 9 of them, decided to, you know, keep me engaged and invite me to everything they were doing. And Teddy used to come over to my office and say, let's go to lunch. And I wanted no part of going to lunch or getting to know anybody. I just wanted to do my job, get down on Union Station and go home. I mean, for real. And many of you have been through what I've been through and a lot worse. And so one day he walks over and says, I won't use his exact line, he said, darn it, Joe, you're going to lunch with me. So I went over to the private Senate dining room. There's 2 Senate dining rooms. One dining room you'll be able to take someone if you're a senator, and the House is not fundamentally different. But in the Senate, I was fairly successful at bringing together coalitions as a senator. I don't mean but I work like hell. Barack used to always kid me. We'd meet every morning. The first thing we'd meet with one another at 9 in the morning every morning. And the last person we'd each speak to at night, and we ended the day was with one another. That's a deal we made. And one of the things was he always used to say that, you know, I know, and I'd always be, I said, look, Brock, all politics is personal. All politics is personal. And the reason I mention that is that I went over, Teddy had me come over to the Senate. There used to be a Senate dining room. When you walk in the first floor on the Senate side, you go down that hall on the first cross corridor by the elevators. One goes into the Foreign Relations Executive Committee room, another goes down to the staircase going up to the floor, as well as an elevator, and there's an office door on the left and one on the right. On the right is a Senate dining room. Those of your senators are going to be able to bring any of your colleagues or friends in to have lunch with you. But the door on the left used to be a private Senate dining room. You had to be only a U.S. senator was allowed in. And you walked in, and it was a T-shaped. You walked in, and there was a buffet table on the left, which had all luncheon material out, and a long table on the right, like a big dining room table, but it was seated, I'm guessing, 18 to 20 people. And then you walk straight ahead, and perpendicular was another table by windows looking out over the parking lot. And there was another table that held 20 or so people. That was a Democratic table. And so what would happen, Teddy brought me in. He said, all I want you to do is, yes, and you know this to be the case.
Now my distinct privilege to ask President Biden to address us. And President, we can't tell you how much it means to us to have you join us in prayer this evening. We know that you too have been very much affected by what has happened here in New Orleans. And thank you for your presence. And we now ask you to share some reflections with us.
Your Excellency, Archbishop Heyman, members of the clergy, representing Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and faiths across the board, thank you for what you're doing. Governor Landry, Representatives Carter and Fields, Mayor Cantrell, and all elected officials and members of the community. Most of all, the families and loved ones of those we lost in this horrific act of terrorism last Wednesday. I know events like this are hard, and the shock and pain is still so very raw. My wife Jill and I are here to stand with you, to grieve with you, to pray with you, to let you know you are not alone. The rest of the nation is looking at you as well. It's not the same. We know what it's like to lose a piece of our soul. The anger, the emptiness, the black hole that seems to be sucking you into your chest, the sense of loss, the questions of faith in your soul. I know it's been 5 days staring at that empty chair in the kitchen, around the kitchen table. You're not hearing the voice. You think of the birthdays, the anniversaries, the holidays to come without them. You think of everything, everyday things, the small things, the details you'll miss the most. The morning coffee you shared together, the bend of his smile, the perfect pitch of her laugh. The rest of America has learned about them as well. Students who dreamed of becoming engineers and nurses, star athletes who worked on Wall Street or helped coach small children, warehouse managers, bluegrass fan, cook engaged to be married, a single mom just promoted at work and teaching her young son to read. They came from different states, even different countries. There were children at dinner with their parents, before joining their friends on New Year's Eve. Some even ran toward the chaos to try to help save others. We remember them. Today, we also stand with the 35 people who were injured in the attack. And we think of the brave responders and law enforcement officers, officials, who risked their lives to stop the terror and save others, including 2 of those officers that I met tonight, injured in the firefight. Now, thankfully, both are recovering at our home. I've directed my team to make every resource available to federal, state, and local law enforcement to complete this investigation quickly and do whatever else we can. The French Quarter is also home to so many people. We will support everyone who lives there, all the people of New Orleans, as they heal. And if there's one thing we know, New Orleans defines strength and resilience. You define it whether it's in the form of this attack, or hurricanes or superstorms, this city and its people get back up. That's the spirit of America as well. Let me close with this. The families left behind, we know from some experience it's hard, but I promise you, the day will come when the memory of your loved one, you pass that park, open that closet door, smell that fragrance, just remember that laugh. When the memory of your loved one will bring a smile to your lips before a tear to your eye. It will take time, but I promise you it will come. It will take time. My prayer is that that day comes sooner rather than later, but it will come. And when it does, you may find purpose in your pain to live the life worthy of the one you lost. From the hymn based on the 91st Psalm in my church, may he raise you up on eagle's wings and bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. God bless you all. May God protect our troops. God bless you. Acting in the conduct of war.
Mr. President, did you speak to Pope Francis about canceling your trip to the Vatican, and are you disappointed to not make that visit before leaving office?
Well, to tell you the truth, I am disappointed, but it's much more important I stay here with all that's going on. He fully understands that. I did not personally speak to him, but the team spoke with the apostolic delegate, but I am disappointed.
Mr. President, have you had any reaction to the President Trump's verdict today up in New York, and whether or not you believe that the punishment fit the crime? And also, sir, on pardons, have you ruled out a pardon for yourself or any other additional members of the family?
For myself?
Yes, sir.
What would I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Mr. President, would you comment on Meta's decision to end its fact-checking?
Have an update on Austin Tice in Syria and whether or not he's...
The answer is I'm not going to respond to that because that's an active, ongoing issue. You know my attitude about getting prisoners released from abroad, and I'm not going to comment on that right now.
Just one question again back on pardons and commutations. Can you just give us a sense of what other pardons and commutations you're considering in your last 10 days?
Well, the answer is no, because two things. One is that it depends on some of the language and expectations that Trump broadcast in the last couple of days here as to what he's going to do. The idea that he would punish people for not adhering to what he thinks should be policies related to his well-being is outrageous. But there's still consideration of some folks, nothing but no decision.
Thanks,
have you talked about what kind of post-presidency? Have you decided what kind of role will you have post-presidency, sir? Do you plan to speak out after you leave Washington, or are you going to follow kind of more of the Bush model, where you're kind of out of sight, out of mind?
I'm not going to be out of sight or out of mind.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're in the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition. I have learned in many years of public service to never never, never, ever give up. So I spoke to Prime Minister of Israel yesterday. I spoke to Emir of Qatar today. I look forward to speaking with President Sisi soon. We're pressing hard to close this. The deal we have structured would free the hostages, halt the fighting, provide security to Israel, and allow us to significantly surge humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians who've suffered terribly in this war that Hamas started. They've been through hell. So many innocent people have been killed. So many communities have been destroyed. The Palestinian people deserve peace and the right to determine their own futures. Israel deserves peace and real security. And the hostages and their families deserve to be reunited. And so we're working urgently to close this deal. Today, I can report to the American people, our alliances are stronger than they've been in decades. NATO is more capable than it's ever been. And many more of our allies are paying their fair share. Before I took office, 9 NATO allies were spending 2% of their GDP on defense. Now 23 are spending 2%. And look at the Indo-Pacific. We've made partnerships stronger and created new partnerships to challenge China's aggressive behavior and to rebalance power in the region. We did it, what few thought was possible, to build the first ever trilateral partnership between the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Then another among the United States, Japan, and the Philippines, drawing closer our Pacific allies to defend our shared security and prosperity. We brokered a defense pact known as AUKUS among the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific allies as only America is able to do. And we've taken the Quad to the next level. The United States, Japan, Australia, and India. When we had that first meeting, I was dumbfounded when they all called and said, "Can we do this at your house?" I think I'm kidding. My wife said, "No problem." It was during the UN meeting, and we thought we were going to do it in New York, but they wanted to do it in Delaware. I said, "Why?" He said, "We can know, then people will know we're really friends." Our democracy, with vibrant economies, working closely, security, supply chains, technology, and so much more. In the Red Sea, we brought together more than 20 countries to protect civilian ships from attack by the Houthis, defending freedom of navigation in one of the world's busiest waterways. And we have strengthened partnerships all across the Americas, defending democracy, targeting corruption, addressing migration, increasing prosperity, and protecting Amazon rainforest, which captures billions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere every year. Overall, we've reinvigorated people's faith in the United States as a true partner. Today, I can report to the American people, our adversaries are weaker than were when we came into this job 4 years ago. Just consider Russia. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. But the truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him. Putin never has. Think about it. It was a long train ride, but I'm the only commander-in-chief to visit a war zone not controlled by U.S. forces. We helped Ukrainians stop Putin. And now, nearly three years later, Putin has failed to achieve any of his strategic objectives. He has failed thus far to subjugate Ukraine, failed to break the unity of NATO, and failed to make large territorial gains. There's more to do. We can't walk away. We rallied 50 nations to stand with Ukraine, not just in Europe, but for the first time in Asia as well. Because those countries in Asia know what happens in Ukraine matters to them as well. We delivered air interceptors, massive numbers of munitions, enacted relentless, unprecedented sanctions to keep Ukraine in the fight. And now Russia is struggling to replace what they are losing on the battlefield in terms of military equipment and fighters. And the ruble is under enormous pressure. As I saw it, when Putin launched his invasion, I had two jobs. One, to rally the world to defend Ukraine, and the other is to avoid war between two nuclear powers. We did both those things. Today, Ukraine is still free, independent country with the potential for a bright future. And we laid the foundation for the next administration so they can protect the bright future of the Ukrainian people. And now, look at Iran. Did you ever think we'd be where we are with Iran at this moment? After those despicable attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, Iran directly attacked Israel twice with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones. And twice they failed because the United States organized a coalition of countries to stop them and ordered U.S. aircraft to come to the defense of Israel. Now, Iran's air defenses are in shambles. Their main proxy, Hezbollah, is badly wounded. And as we tested Iran's willingness to revive the nuclear deal, we kept the pressure with sanctions. Now Iran's economy is in desperate straits. All told, Iran is weaker than it has been in decades. And if you want more evidence that we've seriously weakened Iran and Russia, just take a look at Syria. President Assad was both countries' closest ally in the Middle East. Neither could keep him in power. Quite frankly, neither really tried very hard. Now, I cannot claim credit for every factor that led to Iran and Russia growing weaker in the past 4 years. They did plenty of damage all by themselves. But Israel did plenty of damage to Iran and its proxies. But there's no question, our actions contributed significantly. And now major authoritarian states are aligning more closely with one another. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. But that's more out of weakness than out of strength. So as the new administration begins, the United States is in a fundamentally stronger position with respect to these countries than we were 4 years ago. Like many of you, I've dedicated a significant portion of my career to our nation's foreign policy. As chair of the Foreign Relations Committee as a senator, vice president for 8 years, and now president of the United States, I put together one of the most competent foreign policy teams, I would argue, in American history, sitting in this room and before my eyes. Throughout my career, the world has undergone tremendous change. But certain things have always held true. At our best, America leads not only by the example of our power, but the power of our example. In the past 4 years, we've used that power, not to go it alone, but instead to bring countries together, to increase shared security and prosperity, to stand up to aggression, and to solve problems through diplomacy wherever possible, and to relentlessly defend democracy, civil rights, and human rights. Because that's who we are. That's who we are. You've heard me say it many times before. We're the only country on earth founded on idea. Every other country is founded on geography, religion, ethnicity, or some other unifying factor. But America was built on an idea, literally, not figuratively. That idea was all women and men are created equal. The idea that has inspired the world for 250 years and counting. We're always reaching to do better. Always looking to the future. Not our best. Always seeking progress for our people and for people everywhere. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president.
Today, I'm optimistic about our future, as optimistic as I've ever been. Just have to remember who in the hell we are. You've heard me say it many times. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. There is nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together and commit to it. Nothing. So thank you all for all you've done. I hope many of you are going to be staying in the next administration to keep this moving. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
The implementation of this deal will be in the hands of the next administration, and basically they will shape the future of Gaza. So how do you see this future? And also, how much credit do you give to the Trump team for this deal? Trump is already taking credit for it.
Well, you know, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. Exact. And we got the world to endorse it. Secondly, it's America's support for Israel that helped them badly weaken Hamas and its backers and create the conditions for this deal. And thirdly, I knew this deal would have to be implemented by the next team, so I told my team to coordinate closely with the incoming team to make sure we're all speaking with the same voice, because that's what American presidents do. Thank you.
In the, how many Americans will be released when the hostages are being released?
All the exact detail of how many people are being held, how many bodies will be returned and less, will all be forthcoming. All of it, all of it. Thank you.
This deal will hold.
I'm confident. Thank you.
Who takes credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you. My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans. This will be my final address to you from the American people from the Oval Office, from this desk as president. And I've been thinking a lot about who we are and maybe more importantly, who we should be. Long ago in New York Harbor, an iron worker installed beam after beam, day after day. He was joined by steel workers, stonemasons, engineers. They built not just a single structure, but a beacon of freedom. The very idea of America was so big, we felt the entire world needed to see. The Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America, it was built not by one person, but by many people, from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty is not standing still. Her foot literally steps forward atop a broken chain of human bondage. She's on the march, and she literally moves. She was built to sway back and forth to withstand the fury of stormy weather, to stand the test of time because storms are always coming. She sways a few inches, but she never falls into the current below. An engineering marvel. The Statue of Liberty is also an enduring symbol of the soul of our nation. A soul shaped by forces that bring us together and by forces that pull us apart. And yet through good times and tough times, we've withstood it all. A nation of pioneers and explorers, of dreamers and doers, of ancestors native to this land, of ancestors who came by force, A nation of immigrants came to build a better life. A nation holding the torch of the most powerful idea ever in the history of the world. That all of us are created equal. That all of us deserve to be treated with dignity, justice, and fairness. That democracy must defend and be defined and be imposed, moved in every way possible. Our rights, our freedoms, our dreams. But we know the idea of America, our institution, our people, our values that uphold it are constantly being tested. Ongoing debates about power and the exercise of power. But whether we lead by the example of our power or the power of our example. Whether we show the courage to stand up to the abuse of power or we yield to it. After 50 years at the center of all of this, I know that believing in the idea of America means respecting the institutions that govern a free society. The presidency, the Congress, the courts, a free and independent press. Institutions that are rooted, they just might not reflect the timeless words, but they echo the words of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Rooted in the timeless words of the Constitution, we the people. Our system of separation of powers, checks and balances. It may not be perfect, but it's maintained our democracy for nearly 250 years, longer than any other nation in history that's ever tried such a bold experiment. In the past 4 years, our democracy has held strong. And every day I've kept my commitment to be president for all Americans through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history. I've had a great partner in Vice President Kamala Harris. It's been the honor of my life to see the resilience of essential workers getting us through a once-in-a-century pandemic. The heroism of service members and first responders keeping us safe. The determination of advocates standing up for our rights and our freedoms instead of losing their jobs to an economic crisis that we inherited. Millions of Americans now have the dignity of work. Millions of entrepreneurs and companies creating new businesses and industries, hiring American workers, using American products. And together, we've launched a new era of American possibilities. One of the greatest modernizations of infrastructure in our entire history, from new roads, bridges, clean water, affordable high-speed internet for every American. We invented the semiconductor, smaller than the tip of my little finger, and now is bringing those chip factories and those jobs back to America where they belong, creating thousands of jobs. Finally, giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug prices for millions of seniors. And finally, doing something to protect our children and our families by passing the most significant gun safety law in 30 years and bringing violent crime to a 50-year low. Meeting our sacred obligation to over 1 million veterans so far who are exposed to toxic materials, and to their families, providing medical care and education benefits and more for their families. You know, it will take time to feel the full impact of all we've done together. But the seeds are planted, and they'll grow and they'll bloom for decades to come. At home, we've created nearly 17 million new jobs, more than any other single administration, a single term. More people have health care than ever before. And overseas, we've strengthened NATO. Ukraine is still free. And we pulled ahead of our competition with China. And so much more. I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed. That's why I've upheld my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example. I have no doubt that America is in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before. More than a century ago, but the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. They just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to. Workers want rights to earn their fair share. You know, they were dealt into the deal, and it helped put us on a path to building the largest middle class, the most prosperous century any nation in the world has ever seen. And we've got to do that again. In the last 4 years, that is exactly what we've done. People should be able to make as much as they can, but play by the same rules, pay their fair share of taxes. So much is at stake. Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country, from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history of the world, and the rest of the world is trying to model it now. It's working, creating jobs and industries of the future. Now, we've proven we don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. We're doing both. The powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. We must not be bullied into sacrificing the future of our children and our grandchildren. We must keep pushing forward and push faster. There's no time to waste. It's also clear that American leadership in technology is an unparalleled source of innovation that can transform lives. We see the same dangers of the concentration of technology, power, and wealth. You know, in his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence is the most consequential technology of our time, perhaps of all time. Nothing offers more profound possibilities and risks for our economy and our security, our society, for humanity. Artificial intelligence even has the potential to help us answer my call to end cancer as we know it. But unless safeguards are in place, AI could spawn new threats to our rights, our way of life, to our privacy, how we work, and how we protect our nation. We must make sure AI is safe and trustworthy and good for all humankind. In the age of AI, it's more important than ever that the people must govern. And as the land of liberty, America, not China, must lead the world in the development of AI. You know, in the years ahead, it's going to be up to the president, the presidency, the Congress, the courts, the free press, and the American people to confront these powerful forces. We must reform the tax code, not by giving the biggest tax cuts to billionaires, but by making them begin to pay their fair share.
We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year term limit, time and term, for the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress. We need to amend the Constitution to make clear that no president is immune from crimes that he or she commits while in office. The president's power is not limited. It's not absolute. And it shouldn't be. And in a democracy, there's another danger to the concentration of power and wealth. It erodes a sense of unity and common purpose. It causes distrust and division. Participating in our democracy becomes exhausting and even disillusioning. And people don't feel like they have a fair shot. We have to stay engaged in the process. I know it's frustrating. A fair shot is what makes America, America. Everyone's entitled to a fair shot. Not a guarantee, but just a fair shot. An even playing field. Going as far as your hard work and talent can take you. We can never lose that essential truth. Remain who we are. I've always believed, and I've told other world leaders, America can be defined by one word: possibilities. Only in America do we believe anything is possible. Like a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claremont, Delaware, sitting behind this desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. That's the magic of America. It's all around us. Upstairs in the residence of the White House, I've walked by a painting of the Statue of Liberty I don't know how many times. In the painting, there's several workers climbing on the outstretched arm of the statue that holds the torch. It reminds me every day I pass it of the story and soul of our nation and the power of the American people. There's a story of a veteran. This is a veteran, the son of an immigrant, whose job was to climb that torch and polish the amber panes so rays of light could reach out as far as possible. He was known as the keeper of the flame. He once said of the Statue of Liberty, quote, speaks a silent universal language, one of hope, that anyone who seeks and speaks freedom can understand. Yes, we sway back and forth to withstand the fury of the storm, to stand the test of time. A constant struggle, a short distance between peril and possibility. But what I believe is the America of our dreams is always closer than we think. And it's up to us to make our dreams come true. Let me close by stating my gratitude to so many people, to the members of my administration, as well as public service and first responders across the country and around the world. Thank you for stepping up to serve. To our service members and your families, it's been the highest honor of my life to lead you as Commander-in-Chief. And of course to Kamala and our incredible partner, the historic Vice President. She and Doug have become like family. And to me, family's everything. My deepest appreciation to our amazing First Lady who's with me in the Oval today. For our entire family. You're the love of my life and the lives of my love. My eternal thanks to you, the American people. After 50 years of public service, I give you my word. I still believe in the idea for which this nation stands. A nation where the strength of our institutions and the character of our people matter and must endure. Now it's your turn to stand guard. May you all be the keeper of the flame. May you keep the faith. I love America. You love it too. God bless you all. And may God protect our troops. Thank you for this great honor.
Mr. President, do you plan to talk to Trump before inauguration? Do you plan to talk to Trump before inauguration?
No, it's coming up really quick. I'll see you at the inauguration.
What's your take on the TikTok decision today, sir?
Well, the decision will be made by the next president anyway, so I think it will work.
Why didn't you act earlier in the ERA?
And I had to get all the facts, and I contacted about every constitutional scholar in the world, make sure I make the right decision.
Do you think someone will buy TikTok? Have you spoken to hostage families?
I have. Now, you mean the ones who are coming home now?
Yes.
I've spoken to the families, but I haven't spoken to anybody that's come home.
Can you talk about why you wanted to come to the church today?
Yeah, because they're good guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Hello. Mayor Gaylor, thank you very much from Columbus, Ohio, for your leadership of this conference. Please have a seat if you have one. Thank you, Tom Cochran, for your remarkable stewardship of the U.S. Conference of Mayors for decades. I want to give a special thanks to his wife, Clarita, who I just met. She's running around here, feeling after she broke her hip. You good, doing well? Anyway, Tom, you and I have something in common. We both married way above our station. To my hometown mayor, John Carney. John, where are you? Out there? Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you, John. This guy's a true public servant. He just finished 8 years as a great governor and then decided to run for mayor. A special thanks to another great friend, the mayor of my second home, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Paige Cognotti. Paige. It's an honor to receive this award. As I measure the significance of the award based on the character and the consequences of the organization bestowing the award. The U.S. Conference of Mayors is an organization of character and consequence. And thanks to all of you for your partnership and the progress we made together these 4 years. I must say, a big reason we got so much done is because all former mayors have served in my administration. Steve Benjamin, Pete Buttigieg, Marcia Fudge, Keisha Lance Bottom, Mitch Landrieu, Tom Vilsack, Marty Walsh, and thanks to Tom Perez, a guy like me who has been my point person for all of this, but he's a county guy. That's tougher, man. I don't know, man. This is one of the last events that I'll be doing as president. And the reason I chose to be here is because of the first thing that I did as president was to speak to this conference. You know, as many of you know, maybe you weren't here then, but many of you know, I started my career as a local councilman. I only ran for the Senate because it was too damn hard being a local councilman. You know, people know where you live. They think you can solve every problem. They think you have more money than you do and more power than you do. You're in the front lines answering key questions in their lives. Is my neighborhood safe? My kid going to have the good fortune to be here in his hometown? Will there be jobs here? So many other questions. It matters. What you do matters, matters, matters. When we first met 4 years ago, the pandemic was raging, and our economy was reeling. 4 years later, our nation and our cities have emerged stronger than we were when we entered the crisis. I come here today for a couple reasons. First, my administration released a report summarizing the impact of our work together to invest in America. It all started with the American Rescue Plan, one of the most significant recovery packages in our history, to get us out of the immediate crisis of the pandemic and save thousands of lives. One of the most important decisions I made was to send money directly to you. Directly to you. I'm a local official. Governors are good guys and women, but when you send it to the state legislature, they divide it up before it gets to you. It goes directly to you when I do it. So you control the outcome. Then we passed the Invest in America Act. That's launching a new era of American possibilities. One of the greatest modernizations of infrastructure in our history,
we passed. New roads, bridges, clean water, affordable high-speed internet for every American. I know each of you, because there's so many examples of the projects in your community. There's thousands of them. We also made the biggest investment in fighting climate change ever in the history of the world, not just America, because of you. I think one thing we've all changed together, when I use the word here climate, I think jobs. I think jobs when I hear climate. We're creating hundreds of thousands of good-paying, clean energy jobs. We've proven you don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. You're doing both. We have to keep pushing forward, push forward faster. There's no time to waste. I'm with you and your governors to make the devastating hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and wildfires, like the catastrophic fires and wildfires in California. Together, we push Congress for extra disaster relief funding, to rebuild homes and businesses across the Carolinas, to cover the full cost of replacing the collapsed Key Bridge in Baltimore, and so much more. At the same time, we work with you to upgrade the power grids, plant millions of trees, build resilient communities to withstand extreme weather. Not only build, but to build back better than before. Build back better. We also made the most significant investment in science and innovation. America invented the semiconductor. Now we're bringing those chip factories back home to America where they belong. I've stood with you in Columbus, Syracuse, Phoenix, and many more fields of dreams where these fabs, these massive new factories the size of several football fields, are being built. And as I speak, you're going to create at least 125,000 good-paying jobs. And the jobs in these fabs are going to pay over $100,000 a year, and you don't need a college degree. You don't have to move from your hometown. You can stay where you are. If I could pause for a minute, you know what's going to happen as well? When you build these factories, they're going to have to build more barbershops, beauty salons. I'm not joking. They're going to build grocery stores. They're going to build drugstores. It grows communities in a big way. We will soon be the only economy in the world to have all 5 of the top chip companies operating in America, creating thousands of jobs. And for the first time in decades, these new factories are producing the most advanced chips right here in America. These aren't just fabs, these investments are creating opportunities for entire communities, for small business, creating even more jobs, and so much more. I've kept my commitment to be president for all of America, whether you voted for me or not. In fact, studies show my programs have delivered more for red states than blue states. The results are clear. 16.6 million new jobs, the lowest average unemployment rate for 50 years. A record 21 million new applications to start new businesses. And every one of those applications is an act of hope in your communities. Wages are up. Inflation is down. And we passed the most significant gun safety law in 30 years. We're slashing overdose deaths by 26% last year you did it. Faster than ever. And seizing record amounts of fentanyl. Making life-saving Narcan available over the counter. Violent crime is now at a 50-year low. Because of you. The bottom line, you've produced an incredible 4 years. So much we got done together. It'll take time to see and feel, though. But the seeds have been planted. Will grow and they'll bloom for decades to come, and none of it could have happened without all of you. And that's not hyperbole. None of it. You know, we're not finished yet. Earlier today, I announced 3 major priorities that mark important progress in our country. First, after fighting Big Pharma for decades as a senator and then vice president as president, we finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month for insulin, seniors now pay $35 a month. But that wasn't the only thing that happened when we passed the bill. Starting this month, the total prescription drug cost for seniors is capped at $2,000 no matter how expensive their drugs are. Even expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $14,000, they're not going to have to pay more than $2,000 a year. And finally, we gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices like the VA has been able to do for veterans all along. These negotiations are being implemented in phases. The first phase, negotiated lower prices for the 10 most expensive drugs for seniors, covering drugs for blood clots and so much more. And just this morning, I announced the next phase, the next 15 drugs subject to negotiations. Drugs that will treat cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and so much more, including Ozempic. Hard to say. But it really is an incredible drug. These reforms just don't save seniors money. They save the American taxpayer $160 billion. The taxpayer over the next decade. Why? That $160 billion in Medicare is saving for negotiating lower drug prices in Big Pharma doesn't have to be paid out by the government. $160 billion. Second, just over 100 years ago, a pioneering group of women proposed the Equal Rights Amendment to enshrine the principles of gender equality in our Constitution. Throughout my career, I've been clear. No one should be discriminated against based on their sex. And in order for the amendment to be ratified, it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify it. That benchmark was passed when Virginia ratified the ERA a few years ago. Today, I affirm the Equal Rights Amendment to have cleared all the necessary hurdles to be added to the U.S. Constitution now. The Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land now. It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now. I consulted dozens of constitutional scholars to make sure that it was all within the power to do this. And the fact is, we did. And third, our cities are places for a second chance. Earlier today, I commuted the sentence of nearly 2,500 convicted nonviolent drug offenders. These individuals are serving a disproportionately long and harsh sentence compared to the sentence they would receive had they committed the crime today. After spending too long behind bars, these individuals will soon be reunited with their families and communities. With this action, I make no apology. I've issued more individual pardons and commutations than any president in U.S. history. There is more work to do, but when we allow our justice system to be a place of both accountability and mercy, it strengthens our cities and our nation as well, in my view. Let me close with this. Serving as your president has been the honor of my life. When my term in office is ending, the work continues. Your work continues. My farewell address 2 days ago, I talked how each of us must be guardians of democracy to restore the strength of our institutions of democracy. The presidency, the Congress, the courts, all have minimum requirements under the law to deal with those safeguards. And a free and independent press. And yes, local governments. The strength of our institutions depends on the character of leaders like you. In our time together, I'm forever thankful to have seen the strength, your strength and your character. And we need it now more than ever. The magic of America has been everyone has a fair shot. Everyone is determined to be able to be treated with dignity. No guarantee, just a fair shot. I've always believed America can be defined in one word. I remember being in the Tibetan Plateau with Xi Jinping. I've met with him for over 90 hours alone. Traveled 17,000 miles with him. Very significant differences. He looked at me and he said, "Can you define America for me?" And I said in one word, possibilities. We're the only nation in the world. Only nation in the world that's come out of every crisis we've ever gone in stronger than we went in. Only one. Look at the history. We're the only nation in the world that believes when we act together, there's not a damn thing we can't do. Only in America that anything is possible. You just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. Nothing is beyond our capacity when we do it together and act together. God bless you all. Keep working together. We need you, we need you, we need you, we need you. And may God protect our troops. Thank you so very much. Let me close with this. Serving as your president has been the honor of my life. When my term in office is ending, the work continues. Your work continues. My farewell address 2 days ago, I talked how each of us must be guardians of democracy to restore the strength of our institutions of democracy. The presidency, the Congress, the courts, all have minimum requirements under the law to deal with those safeguards. And a free and independent press, and yes, local governments. The strength of our institutions depends on the character of leaders like you. In our time together, I'm forever thankful to have seen the strength, your strength and your character. And we need it now more than ever. The magic of America has been everyone has a fair shot. Everyone is determined to be able to be treated with dignity. No guarantee, just a fair shot. I've always believed America can be defined in one word. I remember being in the Tibetan Plateau with Xi Jinping. I've met with him for over 90 hours alone. Traveled 17,000 miles with him. Very significant differences. He looked at me and he said, "Can you define America for me?" And I said in one word, possibilities. We're the only nation in the world. Only nation in the world that's come out of every crisis we've ever gone in stronger than we went in. Only one. Look at the history. We're the only nation in the world that believes when we act together, there's not a damn thing we can't do. Only in America that anything is possible. You just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. Nothing is beyond our capacity when we do it together and act together. God bless you all. Keep working together. We need you, we need you, we need you, we need you. And may God protect our troops. Thank you so very much. Hey, folks, it's going to be quick because I got to be downstairs, but thank you very much for being here. This morning, the deal that I first put forward last May for the Middle East has finally come to fruition. The ceasefire has gone into effect in Gaza, and today we're seeing hostages being released. 3 Israeli women held against their will in the dark tunnels for 470 days. 4 more women will be released in 7 days. 3 additional hostages every 7 days thereafter, including at least 2 American citizens in this first phase. We pray for them and their families. They're going to be a long recovery ahead. By the 16th day of the deal, talks will begin in the second phase. This phase includes the release of Israeli soldiers and a permanent end of the war without Hamas in power or able to threaten Israel. Hundreds of trucks are entering Gaza as I speak. They're carrying assistance for civilians who suffered enormously from the war that Hamas started on October 7, 2023, nearly 15 months ago. Today alone, we anticipate several hundred trucks will enter the Gaza Strip as I'm speaking. And after so much pain, destruction, and loss of life, today the guns in Gaza have gone silent. This was the deal that I outlined for the world back in May 31st. Many of you covered it at the time. It was endorsed overwhelmingly by folks around the world, including the UN Security Council, unanimously endorsed the deal, and developed in coordination with Egypt, Qatar, and Israel. I've worked in foreign policy for decades, and this is one of the toughest negotiations I've been part of. Many of you who have followed these negotiations will attest that the road to this deal has been not easy at all, and a long road. But we've reached this point today because of the pressure Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States. Some said my policy of a firm support for Israel was relentlessly pursuing diplomacy, risked drawing America into a wider war in the region. I listened to those voices, many of whom I respected a great deal, but I concluded abandoning the course I was on would not have led us to the ceasefire we're seeing today. But instead, it would have risked a wider war in the region that so many feared. Now the region has been fundamentally transformed. Hamas's longtime leader, Sinwar, is dead. Hamas sponsors in the Middle East have been badly weakened by Israel, backed by the United States. Hezbollah, one of Hamas's biggest backers, was significantly weakened on the battlefield, and its leadership was destroyed. Even as we worked for diplomatic solutions in Lebanon, we provided ongoing assistance and supported Israel's military campaign against Hezbollah, including its efforts to take out the terror infrastructure along the border between Israel and Lebanon. Israel's campaign was extremely successful, so much so that by the end of November, the United States had brokered a ceasefire in Lebanon. Hezbollah did what it said it would never do. It cut its deal and abandoned Hamas. And today, in Lebanon, there's finally a new president and prime minister, both of whom support a sovereign Lebanon without Hezbollah running the show or playing any part in it. The Assad regime next door in Syria is gone, removing Iran's ready access to Lebanon. Iran is in the weakest position in decades after the U.S. military helped defend Israel from Iranian missiles and supported Israel's military response inside Iran. Just look across the region. In Lebanon, there's an opportunity for a future free from the grip of Hezbollah. In Syria, a future free from the tyranny of Assad. For the Palestinian people, a credible path to a state of their own. And for the region and the future normalization and integration of Israel with all its Arab neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, who I've spoken with. You know, we've had many difficult days since Hamas began this terrible war. We've encountered roadblocks and setbacks, but we haven't given up. And a special thanks to my team, particularly Brett McGurk, who many of you know, who spent weeks and months working nonstop to reach this deal. Many of those weeks and months out of the country. Today's ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages is a result of a principled and effective policy that we presided over for months. And we got here without a wider war in the Middle East than many predicted. And now it falls on the next administration to help implement this deal. I was pleased to have our team speak as one voice in the final days. It was both necessary and effective and unprecedented. But success is going to require persistence and continuing support for our friends in the region and the belief in diplomacy backed by deterrence. So as we reflect on the news from Gaza today, we also remember all the victims of this war. We're mindful that the pursuit of a lasting peace, while never easy or quick, must always be our calling. So thank you all for listening. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. I'm looking forward to this deal being fully implemented. And I'm sorry I'm not going to take any questions now because I'm waiting. There's a whole congregation waiting for me. And I'm sure the remainder of the day I'll have an opportunity to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Anything about the condition of the hostages that were released today and the others?
Yes, I've just got a call saying the 3 are released into Gaza, 2 out of the hands of their captors, and they appear to be in good health, but it's early to tell. They may be across the border out of the Gaza Strip into Israel now. I'm not certain. Thank you.
Sir, any concerns about Hamas regrouping?
No.
Will you remain involved in the deal as it moves forward?
No way out. Proud of the deal.
Thank you, sir.
For a lifetime into this. Granted, about 23 years.
This is the Gullah Geechee Gallery here. I would argue every American history is here to have a little bit of Gullah. We have the opportunity to have an entire gallery that is present on our trip to Angola. One of the reasons that we think the word Gullah came from was an abbreviation of Angola, because we wanted so many of their people, because they understood rights and traditions, something we're all very familiar with, the Praise House, so Southern iconic space. Will come right in here. So we built this Praise House to look like Praise House here all over the world.
And it grows. It just kept growing. And you kept making it. I know, got done. I've talked to people who've done both. And in the book, you see, I want to say this.
That is an amazing question. So, often, so we did have some Muslim folks, we have African religions, we did actually have Christians as well who were being facilities in that time.
It's fine. It's bigger.
But at some point, African Americans decided that sounds like our story about trying to be free and not welcome in your own home. This way. So as we come into this larger space of the gallery, one of the things we try to do is show the impact of the Gullah Geechee community and culture on all of the United States. A lot of what we consider Southern culture is really the West African influence on the making of America, but also some things you might not know. So here we have a picture of Reverend Esau Jenkins. When they talk about Rosa Parks coming to the Low Country to be trained, this was who helped train her. Reverend Jenkins and Septima Clark were part of her training in that space. And then we have some traditional elements. This is a bateau that we had built using the old ways with the old tools. There's a lot of water down here in the Low Country. Sometimes it's in places we don't want it to be. But this is a water-faring people. And so there's a tradition of boating and fishing. And over here, we talk a lot of the cultural elements. We talk a little bit about the recipes, of which you had a taste when you came in earlier, some of that good old Southern and Gullah influenced cooking. And we do a nod to things people don't know, Porgy and Bess. So the inspiration for Porgy and Bess was down here. It was Rainbow Row, it was the Gullah Geechee community and the ways of being in that space. So we just use this gallery.
You know what the Gullah Geechee community is for real?
Yeah.
You do? I'm glad it's fascinating. I thought it was incredible.
I see a lot of nodding heads. Because of the sea islands and the isolation, this particular community of African Americans maintains strong memory and cultural ties. We're most known for the sweetgrass baskets, of course, and all of that. It's the way that we maintain beauty and sense of self, even in the midst of tragedy and trauma. All right, so from here, we'll go ahead and walk across to our next space, the Gold Gallery. So while we infuse the story throughout the museum, this is the gallery that speaks the most and most deeply about the traditions, the institution of slavery and enslavement. And we try to do a couple things in this space. We try to be authentic and honest about the inhumanity of the institution without losing sight of the humanity of the people who were enslaved. And so behind me on this side, we do a lot of talking about the institution of slavery and enslavement. We have a mock-up of a rice plantation. We talk here about the technology and innovation that the enslaved people brought. We like to say it was never just the labor. It was also the science and ingenuity that these Africans already knew. Right? As far back as 300 BCE, they were growing rice on the continent of Africa. And here the one thing we have in common is we have fresh water meeting salt water, which is very, very difficult to manage. And they understood that too. And so that's how it became a priority to bring in people from Angola and the West Coast and places that already knew how to cultivate rice. At one point, we were challenging China for the position as #1 global rice exporter to the world, here in the Low Country. Here on this side, we talk about individual people, names and stories. We know that a lot of names have been lost. We know a lot of personal stories have been lost, but not all of them. As a matter of fact, a good number are in the Library of Congress because we had the Federal Writers Project that went into the Deep South and took oral histories of living formerly enslaved people. And so we have 2 of the stories here on this board, and we pulled out a couple of names and faces that we can also explain to help humanize, to allow folks to realize that these were people. One of the most interesting things in this gallery is that people resonate with the people. If I ever get anyone in here from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, or someone who has a relative there, that is the first thing that they zone in on. And that bit of humanity and connection helps folks calm down and take the information in. And behind the secretary here, we have an artifact that many are familiar with. A lot of folks are familiar with David Drake. He was probably the most well-known of the black potters of Edgefield, South Carolina, because it wasn't all agriculture, right? So there was also manufacturing. And what's remarkable is incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. A lot of his work still survives and is beautiful and is in this space. And so we can use this to show, because in particular, David Drake is known for signing his work and even putting original snippets of his own poetry on the work. And this was a time when Africans and African Americans.
I first got involved in public life because of the Civil Rights Movement. I'd attend 7:30 Mass at my church, then I'd go to another morning service at the AME Church in Delaware. The Black Church, the spiritual home of the Black experience that helped redeem the soul of the nation, literally. That's the truth we honor. On the weekend, we celebrate one of the political heroes, my political heroes of many years, Dr. Martin Luther King. I have 2 busts in my office that I can see from my desk. I had 2 political heroes growing up, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy. No, I'm serious, sir. You've been in my office, Jim. There's 2 busts that I see from my desk. On Sundays, we often reflect on resurrection and redemption. We remember Jesus was buried on Friday and he rose on Sunday. We don't talk enough about Saturday, when the disciples felt all hope was lost. Our lives and the lives of the nation, we have those Saturdays. We bear witness of the day before glory. And some people's pain are in pain, and they can't look away. But what the work we do on Saturday is going to determine whether we move with pain or purpose. How can faith get a person, get a nation through what's to come? Here's what my faith has taught me. Scripture says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another person. That's what faith and friendship have taught me. Well, thank you. I tell you, I love Jim. Jim, I want to thank you. You're the best friend anyone could have. I really mean it. You're incredible. And thank you, Liberation Choir. You are incredible. You know, you capture the spirit of what St. Augustine of my church said. He said, singing is praying twice. Yes. Well, you're praying 4 times. Now, I apologize for my back. Stand there and you're chilly. All right. Oh, God love you. No, Jim, as I said, you're one of the best friends anybody could have. You're a student of history, teacher of history. This museum of history is one of your dreams. And Mayor Joe Riley, I don't know where Joe is. Joe is incredible. Joe, you, another dear friend who had a vision and fortitude to make this museum a reality. Reverend Joe Darby, God love you. Thank you. Thank you for your friendship and your fellowship. And Dr. Tanya Matthews, who's just part of the official delegation, I took a trip to Angola because we're starting something major in Africa, and I wanted her to come along. I want to thank you very much and your fellow leaders here at the museum, including one of the great American landscape artists, Walter Hood, who makes work here studying breathtaking. I'd like to also thank two outstanding members of my cabinet. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, one of the best appointments ever made in my career. He's not only a warrior, he has a heart as big as his head. He's an incredible man. No, you are, Lloyd. You're first rate. And Administrator of Environmental Protection Agency, Michael Regan. Michael. Our extraordinary leaders and patrons and friends here. I want to thank you all, distinguished guests. Before I go any further, though, I do want to introduce my family. The love of my life and the life of my love, my daughter, Ashley Biden. Stand up, Ashley. Ashley's a social worker protecting abused women in Philadelphia. God love you, kid. And my son, Hunter Biden, the smartest man I know. And my grandson, named after his uncle, Bo's not here, Bo Biden. And that beautiful lady sitting next to Hunter is his wife. And guess what? She's from South Africa. Look, folks, as Jill and I shared, we felt that the power of prayer for so many of you across South Carolina has made a big deal for us. It's been a big deal for us, for real. That's why at our last full day in office, we wanted to be here with you in South Carolina. We started this morning in church to reflect on the power of faith in God and each other and our democracy. Here at this museum, we reflect on the power of history, redeeming the soul of a nation. I'm honored to be here and just toured this sacred ground, just as I toured another museum last month in Angola. In the wind and the waves, we could hear them. The young women and men, born free in the highlands of Angola, only to be captured, bound, and forced in a death march by slave traders in the year 1619. The start of a 250 years of slave trade across Africa and the Caribbean to the shores of America. The start of America's original sin. They were baptized into a foreign faith against their will. Their names were changed against their will. Condemned to slave ships bound for what they call the Middle Passage between Africa and America. Many did not survive the journey, and the many who did survive arrived in Charleston, excuse me, Gadsden Wharf, along the Cooper River. When their feet touched this land, iron shackles literally dug into their skin. They were forced to build an 840-foot wharf, the largest single port of entry for enslaved people in American history. And standing here, we hear them again in the wind and the waves, their pain, their fear, their anguish. But we also hear something else, their faith to survive, their faith in each other, their faith to hope pass through generations. This museum is so important because it embodies the trauma and the triumph of the African American experience. And it embodies the truth that black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. And while there are those who want to erase history, some injustices are so heinous that they can never be buried, no matter how hard people try. We must know the good, the bad, and the truth about who we are. That's what great nations do. And we're a great nation. We're unique among nations. Our nation is not based on religion, ethnicity, or geography, or some ethnic component. We're the only nation in the world, the only one, history of the world, built on an idea. The idea was we're all created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. Standing here, we know we've never fully lived up to that idea. but we've never walked away from it either. From slavery to emancipation, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, from the reckoning on race today, there's been a long line of black patriots who've helped make the promise of America real for all Americans, who have helped us become the nation we say we are and want to be. And as my presidency comes to an end, I know how it started because of this movement. As we celebrate his life this weekend, I think of the deep influence Dr. King had on me as I was a kid coming out of school. I think about the people I grew up with as a lifeguard in the East, they call the bucket in Wilmington, in the projects. I was the only white guard, lifeguard, 19 guards there because I wanted to be part of the community. That's the guys I played ball with. East side of Wilmington, there's a guy named Mouse. Mousy was a good man. Mousy got a little trouble when he was younger. Mousy became my friend. We had faith in him. He became the leader of the NAACP in Delaware and also the head of the Longshoremen's Union. He passed away this month, but I think about all of you and so many people across the country of every race and background who have joined the work of redeeming the soul of this nation together. That's what this is about. Time and again, I've seen people open their hearts and change their minds and join hands and continue building the America of our shared dreams. I've tried to be a link between our history and our future, between our dreams and possibilities. I had the honor of serving with the first black president, the first woman vice president. Let me say, Kamala Harris is an incredible leader, and I'm grateful for her partnership and the hope and aspiration she represented for so many people. Together we kept our commitment to have an administration that looks like America and taps into the full talents of America. I guaranteed we'd have an administration that looked like America. We had more women in the cabinet, more African Americans, including the first black Secretary of Defense and a man of great honor. First black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We entered office facing one of the toughest periods in our history. We came out sooner by doing the work to beat the pandemic, to build the strongest economy in the world with some of the most significant investments ever made in all of American history, particularly for black America, to address the sting of systemic racism and advancing racial equality in all we do, including executive action and police reform, to protect fundamental rights and freedoms, from the freedom to vote to the freedom to choose, to reassert America's leadership in the world, including our intense efforts that led to the release of hostages and the ceasefire war in Gaza and the end of the war between Israel and Hamas. A lot of people said we couldn't do it, but this community knew we could do it. In front of the White House, built by an enslaved people, we celebrated Juneteenth, a federal holiday that I named, and introduced the first black woman on the United States Supreme Court. And by the way, she's smarter than those guys. A promise I made here in South Carolina, I can go on, but the point is, we're proving that by remembering our history, we can make history. We know the battle for the soul of America continues. In this moment of strength of our institutions and democracy, the presidency, the Congress, the courts, a free and independent press, and yes, our institutions and our communities like this museum, they matter more than ever. To tell the truth of our nation, to stand up to what my dad said the worst of all sins was the abuse of power. And ensure everyone gets a fair shot. That's what it's all about. To understand the journey of our democracy is difficult and ongoing, and the distance is short between peril and possibility. But we got to keep going. We owe it to all those who came before us here on these waters and all those who are going to come after. Folks, there's so much we can do. We've got to stay involved. We've got to stay engaged. Let me close with where I started. My gratitude for all you've done for me. But most of all, for all you've done for our nation. Scripture says, I've been young and now I'm old, yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken. After all these years working alongside you, I have not seen the righteous forsaken. I love you all. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. My family owes you. We owe you. The nation owes you. May God keep the faith, and may God bless the souls of sacred place. God bless America. And friends in South Carolina like Jim and Emily Clyburn, I could not be standing here. I would not be standing. That's not hyperbole. I would not be standing here in this pulpit were not for Jim Clyburn. And although somewhat presumptuous of me, neither of us would be standing here without Emily, who we all miss dearly and who actually made Jim endorse me. Thank you, Emily. South Carolina friends like Fritz and Peachy Hollings, who believed me when I got through one of the most difficult times of my life. When I was a 9-year-old kid, I got a phone call saying my wife and daughter were dead, and my 2 boys were not likely to live. Well, guess what? Jim, Emily, Fritz, and Peachy, and so many friends in South Carolina have always been there for me, especially in those Saturdays when I felt all hope was gone. Those days when I buried pieces of my soul. My wife, my daughter, my son Bo, who's the Attorney General of Delaware. When I felt like there was just a black hole in my chest sucking me into it. Anger and rage that I felt at the time. But then friends, your friends bear witness. They see your pain. They pick you up. They help you get to Sunday from pain to purpose. I felt that faith and friendship when I prayed with this congregation, when I played with the congregation, prayed with the congregation of Mother Emanuel. I went there and tried to confront them on my own Saturday. But it was they who ended up comforting me as we arrived together and found grace together. Moving from pain to purpose strengthened my faith in the service of others. To love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul and all thy mind, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Very easy to say, but very hard to do. But in the words, those words are the essence of the gospel, is the essence of the American promise. The idea, as was mentioned earlier, we're all created equal in the image of God and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. My dad used to say the greatest sin of all is the abuse of power. We've never fully lived up to that commitment, but we've never walked away from it either because of you and your ancestors before us, who followed light of the North Star even in the darkness. After this service, I'll be visiting the International African American Museum. It captures the ongoing story of redemption. I'll tour the exhibits and I'll speak about the power of history to make real the promise of America for all Americans. But this morning, I'd like to talk about the essential piece of redemption, the power of mercy and justice. With experience, wisdom, conscience, compassion, and science, we know how healing and restoration from harm is a pathway to the kind of communities we want to live in, where there's fairness, justice, accountability in the system, where the people we love go through hard times, fall down, make mistakes, but we're right there to help them get back up. We don't turn on each other. We lean into each other. That's the sacred covenant of our nation. We pledge an allegiance, not just to an idea, but to each other. That's who we're pledging allegiance to. That's how I viewed my decision to issue more individual pardons and commutations than any president in American history. To inspire and end federal death penalty by commuting most of those sentences to life in prison without parole. To commute the sentences of individuals serving disproportionately hard, long, and harsh sentences for nonviolent drug offenses compared to the sentence they would have received today commuting that crime. To show mercy for individuals who either did their time or significant amount of time and have shown significant remorse and rehabilitation. To understand that supervision after release is critical to provide accountability and support, while knowing that government supervision over a very long time serves neither the interests of the person or the public. These decisions are difficult. Some have never been done before. But in my experience, with my conscience, I believe taking together justice and mercy requires, as a nation, to bear witness, to see people's pain, not to look away, and do the work to move pain to purpose, to show we can get a person, a nation, to a day of redemption. We know the struggle toward redeeming the soul of this nation is difficult and ongoing. The distance is short between peril and possibility. But faith teaches us the America of our dreams is always closer than we think. That's the faith we must hold on to for the Saturdays to come. We must hold on to hope. We must stay engaged. We must always keep the faith in a better day to come. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not kidding. So the people of South Carolina, thank you for keeping the faith. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. The highest honor for Jill and our family. And as I close out this journey with you, I'm just as passionate about our work as I was as a 29-year-old kid when I got elected. I wasn't old enough to serve yet. I'm in no ways tired. I've always heard before, we've come too far from where we started. Nobody told me the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. My fellow Americans, I don't think the good Lord brought us this far to leave us behind. As we celebrate Dr. King's legacy and generations before and since, women and men enslaved and free, we have to remember one of his favorite hymns. Precious Lord, take my hand through the storm, through the night, and lead me into the light. Oh, God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. I owe you big. As they say where I come from, you the guys that brought me to the dance. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything about the condition of the hostages that were released today and the others?
Yes, I've just got a call saying the 3 are released into Gaza, 2 out of the hands of their captors, and they appear to be in good health, but it's early to tell. They may be across the border out of the Gaza Strip into Israel now. I'm not certain. Thank you.
Sir, any concerns about Hamas regrouping?
No.
Will you remain involved in the deal as it moves forward?
No way out. Proud of the deal.
Thank you, sir.
With you in South Carolina. We started this morning in church to reflect on the power of faith in God and each other and our democracy. Here at this museum, we reflect on the power of history, redeeming the soul of a nation. I'm honored to be here and just toured this sacred ground, just as I toured another museum last month in Angola. In the wind and the waves, we could hear them. The young women and men, born free in the highlands of Angola, only to be captured, bound, and forced in a death march by slave traders in the year 1619. The start of a 250 years of slave trade across Africa and the Caribbean to the shores of America. The start of America's original sin. They were baptized into a foreign faith against their will. Their names were changed against their will. Condemned to slave ships bound for what they call the Middle Passage between Africa and America. Many did not survive the journey, and the many who did survive arrived in Charleston. Excuse me, Gadsden Wharf, and along the Cooper River. When their feet touched this land, iron shackles literally dug into their skin. They were forced to build an 840-foot wharf, the largest single port of entry for enslaved people in American history. And standing here, we hear them again in the wind and the waves, their pain, their fear, their anguish. But we also hear something else, their faith to survive, their faith in each other, their faith to hope pass through generations. This museum is so important because it embodies the trauma and the triumph of the African American experience. And it embodies the truth that black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. And while there are those who want to erase history, some injustices are so heinous that they can never be buried, no matter how hard people try. We must know the good, the bad, and the truth about who we are. That's what great nations do. And we're a great nation. We're unique among nations. Our nation is not based on religion, ethnicity, or geography, or some ethnic component. We're the only nation in the world, the only one, history of the world, built on an idea. The idea was we're all created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. Standing here, we know we've never fully lived up to that idea. But we've never walked away from it either. From slavery to emancipation, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, from the reckoning on race today, there's been a long line of black patriots who've helped make the promise of America real for all Americans, who have helped us become the nation we say we are and want to be. And as my presidency comes to an end, I know how it started because of this movement. As we celebrate his life this weekend, I think of the deep influence Dr. King had on me as I was a kid coming out of school. I think about the people I grew up with as a lifeguard in the East, they call the bucket in Wilmington, in the projects. I was the only white guard, lifeguard, 19 guards there because I wanted to be part of the community. That's the guys I played ball with. East side of Wilmington, there's a guy named Mouse. Mousy was a good man. Mousy got a little trouble when he was younger. Mousy became my friend. We had faith in him. He became the leader of the NAACP in Delaware and also the head of the Longshoremen's Union. He passed away this month, but I think about all of you and so many people across the country of every race and background who have joined the work of redeeming the soul of this nation together. That's what this is about. Time and again, I've seen people open their hearts and change their minds and join hands and continue building the America of our shared dreams. I've tried to be a link between our history and our future, between our dreams and possibilities. I had the honor of serving with the first black president, the first woman vice president. Let me say, Kamala Harris is an incredible leader, and I'm grateful for her partnership and the hope and aspiration she represented for so many people. Together we kept our commitment to have an administration that looks like America and taps into the full talents of America. I guaranteed we'd have an administration that looked like America. We had more women in the cabinet, more African Americans, including the first black Secretary of Defense and a man of great honor. First black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
president, turning over the reins of power to a man he tried to stop.
Emily Leviner, the Senate Secretary for the Minority, the Honorable Gary Myrick, the House of Representatives Chief Administrative Officer, the Honorable Catherine Spindor, and Mr. Bruce Fisher. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jill Biden and Mr. Douglas Emhoff. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States, ranking member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Majority Secretary, the Honorable Robert Duncan. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, the Honorable Joseph R. Biden Jr., and Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Kamala Devi Harris.
Wow. Folks, came to thank you. You know, I don't think we could have done anything. I know we couldn't have done anything we did without you. Kamala and Doug and members of the cabinet, all the staff that's here, from all across all the agencies, and friends, supporters. Jill and I are forever grateful to you. I mean that. We're genuinely grateful. As you heard me say before, no president gets to choose the moment they enter history, but they get to choose the team they enter history with. And we chose the best damn team in the world. You are. No, it's because of you. I mean this sincere from the bottom of my heart. Because of you, we got so much done for all Americans. I look down there, my Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, exceeded only by his wife who worked for me first. But look, I only hope to look back on these years, hope you look back on them, with the same pride I have of all you've done. You know, I'm proud of is that you did it upholding the core values of honesty, decency, and integrity. I mean, no scandal. I mean, it's incredible what you did. And you represent the best of who we are as Americans. That's not a joke. That's real. Now, while I relied on your ideas and resolve and counsel, we also relied on your families. To all your families, thank you for the sacrifices you made. I mean it. For being part of this journey. Every day, I'm deeply moved by all we all did for this country. I really mean it. History's going to mark down just what you did. You know, but the point I want to make today is to make clear my farewell address, as we all do have we have a lot more to do. We heard the inaugural address today. You know, we got a lot more to do. I know from many years of experience, they're up and downs, but we have to stay with it. My dad taught me the measure of a person, you heard me say this before, is how quickly they get back up when they get knocked down. That's what we have to do right now. And we've always done our best as Americans. We never give up. Never. We're leaving office, but we're not leaving the fight. You're smart, you're skilled, you're passionate. The country needs you again. So all of you can, stay engaged in all the ways you can. Whether it's in public service, or the private sector, or philanthropy, academia, running for office yourself, or anything else you choose to do. I give you my word, we believe in you. We, Jill and I, our family, believe in you. Just as I've said, how the laws we enacted, our seasons are going to grow and bloom for decades to come. I say that to you as well. I have no doubt you'll make this experience and take the friendships you made to continue to do amazing things in decades to come. That's why I see a future. All of it leading the way by you all. You know, so take some time to decompress, reconnect with your friends, spend more time with your family, but most of all, take care of yourselves and each other. I mean it. Let me close where I began, with my sincere gratitude. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been doing this for 50 years. You're the best group of people. Hard to say. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. And I tell you what, the greater honor is being able to serve with all of you. You're incredible. You really are. You really are. Mark my words. History's going to judge what you've done as one of the most significant contributions that's been made by all of America. Look, folks, you know, let me close with that poem you heard me quote before. Seamus Haney wrote, "Once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice will rise up in hope and mystery rhyme. You made it rhyme louder than it's rhymed in a long time." I really mean it. We're on the cusp of real change, so let's make hope and history rhyme. I love you all. I'm keeping you too long, but thank you. Bottom of our heart, thank you. Can I go off this way?